Imagine you made a tall statue out of wet clay. Now, imagine setting it on a patch of ground that is half rock and half soft mud. You would not be surprised if the statue started to lean toward the muddy side. This is almost exactly what happened to the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Construction started hundreds of years ago, and the lean began before the tower was even finished. One side of its foundation, the heavy stone base it sits on, settled into weak, unstable soil. Over the centuries, that lean grew more and more pronounced, like a person slowly losing their balance. It was a charming quirk, a world-famous oddity that drew visitors from everywhere. But that charming lean was also a serious problem. The tower is not a small structure. It is an 8-story bell tower made of marble and stone, weighing about 14,500 metric tons. That is as heavy as a small cruise ship. All that weight was pushing down on a failing foundation, and the lean was getting worse every single year. The plan to save the Tower of Pisa was a masterpiece of careful, counterintuitive thinking. The core idea was not to push the tower up, but to coax it to settle back gently. First, they had to make sure the tower would not move unexpectedly. Step 1. Create a safety harness. Wrapped huge steel bands around the 3rd story. Bands connected to thick steel cables tied to massive A-frames across the plaza. The system acted like a temporary leash, preventing any sudden lurch or fall. It was an insurance policy against disaster. With the tower secured, engineers aimed to shift its center of gravity. The tower leaned south, so they worked on the north side, the higher side. They placed over 800 metric tons of lead ingots at the north base, about 400 cars' weight, to create a gentle pull. That immense weight shifted the balance point slightly, reducing stress and producing a small, measurable counter-lean. The permanent fix was under the ground. The problem, soft soil on the south side. The solution, remove soil from the north side. Soil extraction. Drill carefully angled holes under the northern foundation edge. The main phase of the stabilization work began in 1999. The first step was putting safety measures in place. Steel cables were attached and tensioned, a visible sign the work was serious. Counterweights arrived, huge stacks of lead sitting oddly against the ancient marble. They were not pretty, but they worked, immediately reducing the tilt and giving a stable starting point. With the tower held in that gentle embrace, the team prepared for the most delicate part, soil extraction. The soil extraction process was surgical. The team used 41 drills, each angled to reach just beneath the northern foundation edge. These were not brute force tools. They were precise instruments. First, a hollow tube, a casing, was slid into the ground to keep the hole from collapsing. Then, a smaller helical drill, an auger, was inserted inside to slowly pull out small amounts of soil. Each time, only a small volume of clay and sand was removed, perhaps a few bucketfuls. The work was carried out with the quiet concentration of a watchmaker. After each extraction, work stopped. The team waited and watched. Hundreds of sensors covered the tower and the ground, detecting movements smaller than a millimeter. That data showed exactly how the tower responded. If movement was too fast or unexpected, they stopped, reassessed, and adjusted. As soil was removed from the north, the tower began to settle. Gravity, once the enemy, became the tool, gently pulling it back toward vertical. In total, about 38 cubic meters of soil, enough to fill a large living room, made a huge difference for a 14,500-ton tower. By the time the main stabilization work was completed in 2001, the results were clear and impressive. The Leaning Tower of Pisa had been pulled back from the brink of collapse. The top moved about 45 centimeters, about shoulder width, toward the center. Its lean reduced from a dangerous 5.5 degrees to about 5 degrees. It effectively turned back about 2 centuries of movement and relieved immense stress on the southern side. The most important result was safety. The complex monitoring showed the structure had stabilized. The slow creeping movement finally stopped. Engineers guided the tower to a new, much more stable equilibrium. In December 2001, after more than a decade closed, the tower reopened to visitors. One of the project's greatest successes was that it was virtually invisible. No ugly braces, no external supports, no visible scars. Engineers worked beneath the ground and behind the scenes, respecting the monument's soul. Deep ground anchors now serve as a permanent safety net. It still has its famous photogenic lean, just a little less dramatic and a whole lot safer. The project became a global model for architectural conservation. A committee continues to monitor its movements long-term. Data shows it is healthy and secure, ready to stand for at least another 300 years. Ancient principles of weights and balances combined with modern technology. A stunning success.